Hi there.
Hi.
So Tina, when she introduced you, mentioned that empathy was one of her strong suits, and I was wondering, how do you grow in empathy, and how do you know that you're developing in that?
So I think the way Tina put it was correct. Empathy is, at the end of the day, it's remarkably simple. You just have to put yourself in the other person's shoes. You have to see what's happening from a different set of eyes. And it can be very difficult, but it's definitely something you can learn and train yourself to do.
Yeah.
It just requires effort. And it really requires putting yourself to the side and letting the other person be more important.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Sure.
I was wondering how you got your start in the type of work that you do.
I worked for a company called Pricewaterhouse, which many of you may have heard of. And they taught me how to code, and I graduated at the top of the class there. And then on my, 6 months in, I got sent home from work for wearing a blue shirt. It was a really old-fashioned firm, white shirt, red tie, and I wore a blue shirt, very controversial. And my partner, Wally, sent me home and told me not to come back if I was going to dress that way. I quit. That was Tuesday. I quit on Friday. I got a job at Mesner Viteri, which is now Euro RSCG, and that's how it all started.
You were speaking about how some careers can be happy accidents and that you're moving upwards, backwards, sideways. I'm wondering how you shepherd a career where it seems like you might be moving backwards, but then really ultimately your goal is obviously the other direction.
Yeah. So there's no pat answer, but I'll give you just the general guidance, is spend a lot less time worrying about the next move than the 1-3 down, right? Think about what you're going to learn at the next move because of the job you're trying to get to, as opposed to what you're going to necessarily achieve in the next job. And it's the same advice I give folks graduating from college when they're trying to pick their first job.
What does your recruitment process look like in a company where you lead the team?
I wrote a blog post about this, and there's no short answer, but it boils down to two things. So one is dignity, and treating every candidate with respect. The thing to keep in mind is that every candidate that walks in the door is a customer, and they're interfacing with your brand. And that experience when they interview with your company is a brand moment that they're going to share with their friends. And designers know other designers, engineers know other engineers. And the candidate may not be the right candidate for your company, but they may know somebody who is. And if you always keep in mind that this person, whether it's them or the people they know, can bring you the right referral, it will really influence the way you treat people.
What advice do you have for people who are trying to build more self-awareness?
Beside therapy? I talked about it. It's about it's about being willing to be vulnerable with yourself. I had a pretty tough childhood, and it took me a long time to start to unpack those issues. I didn't really meet my dad till I was 25, and it was a choice I had to make, and it was brutal, but it started something when I was 25 that let me go explore other things. So it's about accepting that you're going to make yourself vulnerable to yourself and then start the journey of exploration.
While maintaining these qualities that you have listed on the board, how do you deal with stress, whether it's personal stress or business company, organizational stressors? Yeah, and I've certainly had moments where I've dealt with stress quite poorly. And that's what all those conversations about the reptile brain are. The easiest habit to develop is don't respond in the moment, because your reptile brain is the thing that's responding in the moment. So you got to step back, you got to go back to your desk, you got to go for a walk or have a coffee or smoke a cigarette, whatever your thing is, and process a little bit so that you're not reacting to the stress, but you've actually digested the moment and synthesized a better way to respond.
I was just curious,
Where are you?
right here,
Hi.
what your average day looks like. Do you have an open door policy? Do you try to have meetings? How do you keep, the pulse of the place you're working for?
Yeah, so I left Squarespace 6 months ago, and actually my answer to this question has dramatically changed since then. I've spent a lot of time with Michael K. I can't pronounce Michael's last name, the founder or CEO of Skillshare. And we've talked a lot about the sort of the cycle of the day and when your creative output's the highest and when you need to recharge and whatnot. So when I was at Squarespace, I put all my meetings in the morning and I tried to lock off my afternoon for myself, and now I've actually reversed it. Your gas tank's full in the morning. So I try to have, some amount of hours in the morning where it's my time to do what I need to do, and that's not checking email, write or think. And then I'll start with lunch meetings and make the afternoon the sort of where you can be, not at 100%, not at 110%. Meetings, and then of course, like kill meetings. Yeah. But my day starts at 7:15 when my wife tells me I'm a half hour late for waking up, and taking care of the kids. And I take my daughter to school every day.
Thank you so much for your vulnerability and generosity. I really appreciate how much you're sharing with us. I am a new manager in a cultural institution, and the department that I'm in is very much in flux. There's a lot of people going in and out. And I was wondering if you have any advice in terms of retaining great talent and going beyond, just a financial benefit, but the environment. I would love to know if you have any advice around that.
Yep. Money at the end of the day doesn't matter to most people once you take care of food and housing and the shit you have to take care of. What matters are those values. And that thing that I said about coming in every day and holding yourself responsible for having the company live up to the values or bringing better values in, that's what keeps people, that's what attracts people, that's what makes these places great to work at. And in periods of change where personnel is changing and leadership might be changing, that's especially when you want to hold on to those values and make sure that those values are strong through that change.
Hi, thanks for the talk today. You specifically talk about failure and the importance of accepting that.
Yep.
Could you talk to us about a time where you've had to institute that culture of failure and a challenge that you've probably had in creating that acceptance?
Yeah, well, I'm gonna cop out and give you an easy example. So at Squarespace, I ran marketing, and we grew that budget from a couple of $1 million in 2010 to $40 million last year to a lot of money this year. And marketing is designed to continuously have failure. 20% of everything you spend is a test, and you have to fail because it's the only way you learn. So it's not a personal example, but it's a real world business example. If you're not taking 10, 20% of your money and risking failure on those dollars, you're never going to find new ways to make money. And Spotify is actually a great example. I don't know where you went, but we were talking earlier. Squarespace spends a lot of money with Spotify, not because Spotify's cool, which it is. But because we did a test and the results were surprising, so we spent more money and we actually discovered something new. And I think we were one of the earlier folks to really dig in deep on spending with Spotify.
You talked about figuring out how to balance founders' values with scalability of a company values. Can you talk about some tactics or some examples where they're sometimes at odds and how you compromised?
I don't know if you've heard, but founders can be difficult people. Normal people don't start companies. They don't. You got to be really smart. You got to have a healthy ego. You got to have crazy conviction in the shit you believe in. And people who have those three things are going to be difficult to work with. I kind of describe it this way, and it's really, it's more of an image than an answer. But I put it this way: when you come into a company, you got to figure out like what the founder's 10 things are, what the foibles are, what those 10 things are that are going to drive you crazy or risk dysfunction. And every startup has dysfunction. And then you have to say to yourself, you know what? The top three, the top four, they're the founders. I'm not even going to attempt to work on that stuff because that's really core to her essence. And the bottom three, well, I'm going to tackle those. I'm going to see what I can do. And if, God willing, I'm successful, then maybe we'll take a look at the middle. That's sort of how I think about it. But not all people are meant to work with each other. I'm not a match for every founder. Not every founder is a match for me. And it's very rare to find founders who actually stay with the whole arc of a company. Steve Jobs was in the wilderness for 20 years, or 10 years, whatever. Whereas Mark Zuckerberg has been there the whole time. Or if you look at Etsy and Squarespace, different qualities of founders, because one has managed to run and will continue to run his company for a long time, whereas at Etsy they needed to bring in new leadership to help the company get to the next level.